Welcome to the deep dive. I'm really glad you are joining us today because we're looking at it's a massive operational paradox right at the heart of the maritime industry.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fascinating one.
Right. And to do this, we are looking at a highly strategic presentation deck from Com360. And, I should say right up front, this wasn't written for a general audience. This is material aimed squarely at top-tier maritime executives.
Exactly.
We're talking directly to QHSE leaders, fleet directors, technical superintendents, marine safety managers.
It's people actually running things.
Right, the people who are actively managing fleet operations and keeping global supply chains moving at scale.
And I think the mission of our deep dive today is to unpack an operational reality that, frankly, most people outside the industry, and honestly, even some within it, just don't fully grasp.
Yeah.
When you look at a modern commercial fleet, you see ultra-modern ECDIs navigation, you see advanced satellite tracking, state-of-the-art engineering.
It looks like a spaceship on the bridge.
Exactly. But then the daily operations, the critical safety and compliance workflows that actually govern the vessel, they're frequently just bogged down by outdated, fragmented, paper-based reporting.
It's wild.
So today, we are tracing that strategic transition from manual paperwork to structured operational control.
And whether you are a maritime professional actively prepping for a board meeting on fleet digitalization, or, you're a safety manager trying to figure out how to streamline your SMS compliance, this deep dive is going to look really closely at those invisible workflows.
Because the contrast is just staggering.
It is. The contrast between the operational technology steering the ship and the administrative technology used to manage the crew's daily tasks.
To set the analytical stage here, we really have to look at the sheer density of maritime operations. Fleet operators aren't just pointing a vessel across the ocean.
Right. It's not point A to point B.
No, they're required to maintain strict, unyielding control over environmental compliance, safety protocols, crew operational discipline. Every single day, a vessel is executing dozens of highly specific, high-stakes processes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when the Com360 material examines these daily operations, they aren't talking about casually checking the weather.
Not at all.
They highlight rigorous safety inspections, deep engine room maintenance checks, highly sensitive cargo operations verification.
Environmental compliance monitoring.
Exactly. These are intensive, detailed procedures that form the absolute backbone of maritime QHSE governance.
But here's the real friction point that Com360's data reveals. While the governance standards demanded by the industry are exceptionally high, the actual execution and documentation of these daily workflows remain they're incredibly inconsistent.
Yeah.
The framework is 21st century, but the documentation is stuck in the 1990s.
Which brings us to the manual reporting nightmare. You have these multi-million-dollar vessels, but the crews are completing these vital inspection reports using paper forms on clipboards.
Clipboard.
Right. Or they're using entirely disconnected Excel spreadsheets. And what really stood out to me in the strategy deck is the reliance on what they call shadow IT.
Oh, the shadow IT is a huge issue.
Crews are literally filling out a paper form, taking a photo of it with their smartphone, and sending that photo via WhatsApp to the shore team.
And let's look at the ripple effect of that specific manual process. When you rely on paper forms and messaging apps, you are injecting massive operational risk into your fleet governance. You get severely delayed reporting. You get incomplete documentation because maybe that WhatsApp photo of a sounding log was taken in bad lighting.
Or the paper form itself has a coffee stain on it.
Exactly.
Right, and then think about the shoreside reality.
Yeah.
You have a technical superintendent sitting in an office in Athens or Singapore, looking at a blurry photo sent from the middle of the Pacific, trying to decipher a chief engineer's handwriting.
It's a nightmare.
And then someone has to manually retype that data into the company's official ERP system. You're practically inviting human error at that point.
And what's worse is the physical toll this takes on the crew's efficiency. A seafarer's primary responsibility is operating the vessel.
Right.
They need to be focused on maintaining heavy equipment, monitoring systems, executing safety procedures. But instead, they face this immense administrative burden. They're spending significant chunks of their watch essentially pushing paper.
It fundamentally degrades the efficiency of the entire operation. You have a highly trained second engineer who should be focused on the purifiers, but instead they're acting as a data entry clerk.
Chasing down physical signatures across 4 different decks.
Exactly. Which leads us perfectly into the major consequence of all this manual work, because this inefficiency doesn't just stay isolated on the ship.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we hit a critical concept that COM360 calls the operational visibility gap.
The visibility gap.
Yeah. Fleet managers on shore desperately need clear, accurate operational visibility across all their vessels to make strategic decisions. But because of these fragmented workflows,
The paper checklists, the delayed retyping.
right, a massive reporting void opens up between the vessel and the shore management team.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
In an era where ships have broadband via SAT, shouldn't an email with an attached spreadsheet close that gap? Why is the gap still so dangerous?
Well, that assumes the spreadsheet is filled out in real time and perfectly reflects reality.
Ah.
The reality on board is that a piece of equipment might show signs of wear, the crew notes it on a physical clipboard, but that clipboard doesn't get transcribed into the master spreadsheet until the end of the week.
Wow. Okay.
That delay is exactly why the visibility gap is so dangerous. It paralyzes the fleet manager's ability to respond quickly to operational issues or compliance concerns.
And when we talk about those safety risks, the most glaring failure of this manual system is how it handles near misses.
Absolutely.
We all know how critical near-miss data is for adjusting risk matrices and preventing actual casualties, but it's staggering to realize that this vital data is often just rotting in physical filing cabinets on the bridge.
Precisely the issue.
Yeah.
Capturing a near miss is how you proactively prevent tomorrow's incident. But look at the mechanics of a manual workflow. Say a crane load swings wildly and nearly hits a deckhand.
Okay.
The near miss is recorded on a paper form. It goes into a tray. Maybe it's reviewed at the end of month safety meeting.
A month later.
Right. It results in delayed incident reporting, incomplete causal data, and a total lack of follow-up tracking.
The data is literally trapped on the vessel. If the shoreside safety team doesn't know about that swinging crane instantly, they can't cross-reference it with similar incidents on other vessels.
No.
They can't adjust the risk assessment, and they can't issue a fleet-wide safety bulletin. The paper form fundamentally weakens proactive safety management.
It leaves the fleet operators completely exposed. Because while the ship is struggling with the friction of paper reporting, the external pressure on the fleet operators is only accelerating.
Yeah.
The maritime industry operates under intense, unyielding international scrutiny.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The massive heavyweight of compliance. The COM360 material specifically targets the pressure points of international regulations, SOLAS, MARPOL, and the broader IMO frameworks. And as anyone listening knows, port state control does not mess around when it comes to demonstrating compliance.
No, they certainly don't. And surviving a port state control inspection or a strict external audit requires more than just doing the right thing.
Right.
It requires instantaneous proof that you did the right thing. The standard during these audits is incredibly high. You can't just tell an auditor that your crew conducts proper enclosed space entry procedures.
You have to prove it with an airtight paper trail.
Exactly.
Let's paint a picture of that exact scenario. A port state control inspector boards the vessel. They want to see the oily water separator logs, or they want the environmental compliance monitoring records from 3 weeks ago. With a paper system, this instantly triggers a scramble. The crew is digging through binders in the chief mate's office, hoping a specific sheet of paper didn't accidentally get thrown out or damaged.
And this brings us right back to the unacceptable risk of paper. If you are relying on physical documentation for MARPOL compliance, you are drastically increasing the risk of missing records.
Yeah.
If that inspector asks for a log and the paper is gone, you don't just get a slap on the wrist. You are looking at severe compliance violations, potential detentions, and massive financial penalties.
It is huge.
It is simply a risk profile that modern fleet operators can no longer afford to carry.
So what does this all mean? The vessel has a massive administrative burden. The shore team is flying blind because of the visibility gap, and port state control is demanding instant, flawless proof of compliance.
Right.
It seems obvious. Should a fleet manager just hire a developer, take all their paper checklists, and turn them into a digital PDF or a basic iPad app?
COM360 approaches that exact question with a very firm no.
Interesting.
And this is the crux of their entire strategic philosophy. True workflow optimization is not just glass paper.
Glass paper, I like that term.
Yeah, if you take a flawed, inefficient paper process and simply digitize it onto a tablet, you haven't fixed the operational gap. You've just digitized a bad habit.
Right.
Their approach requires completely redesigning the operational workflows.
But let me push back on that for a second. Internet connectivity in the middle of the ocean, even with Starlink and modern VSAT, is notoriously unreliable.
It is.
How does a massive digital workflow system actually survive out there without just becoming a spinning loading wheel that frustrates the crew even more than the paper did?
That is exactly why redesigning the workflow, rather than just building an app, is critical. A properly redesigned digital workflow for maritime operations has to be built for an offline-first environment.
Okay.
The crew executes the workflow, inputs the data, captures the photographic evidence locally on their device, completely offline. The system then automatically syncs that structured data to the shore the moment connectivity is restored.
Oh, that's smart.
It removes the friction of waiting for a connection while ensuring the data is instantly standardized.
Okay, that makes complete sense. Don't just digitize the paper. Fix the workflow mechanics. And when Com360 looks at overhauling this, they aren't just looking at generic checklists, they are targeting the heavy hitters.
Absolutely.
The presentation outlines the 7 critical maritime workflows. We're looking at safety inspection reporting, equipment maintenance checks, cargo operation verification, environmental compliance monitoring, incident and hazard reporting, crew toolbox talks, and the one that really stands out to me, permit to work.
Let's dive deep into that permit to work workflow because it perfectly illustrates the difference between digitizing and redesigning.
Okay.
A permit to work is the strict protocol required for high-risk activities, hot work like welding or entering an enclosed space. On paper, it's just a checklist with signatures. People can, and unfortunately do, just sign the paper in the mess room without actually verifying the conditions.
We're pencil whipping the form.
Exactly, pencil whipping. But if you redesign that workflow digitally, you can build in forcing functions. Well, for an enclosed space entry, the digital workflow might require the responsible officer to physically input the oxygen and LEL lower explosive limit readings from the gas meter directly into the device, timestamped at the actual location, before the system will even unlock the final approval step to begin work.
That is massive. You are moving from a system of trust to a system of verifiable operational discipline. It completely changes the safety culture on board.
It does. And by focusing on redesigning these specific critical workflows, Com360 positions themselves very strategically in the market. They aren't walking into a fleet director's office acting as just another software vendor throwing a generic app at the problem.
Right.
They are acting as a consultative partner.
They're working with the maritime organizations to actively identify where the friction points are within those specific safety procedures.
Exactly.
Their focus isn't just software deployment. It's fundamentally restructuring how operations are executed by the frontline crew and reported to the shore.
And when fleet operators adopt this structured, optimized approach, the strategic value they unlock is transformative. Com360's data points to 3 critical pillars of value.
Okay, what are they?
First, operational discipline. You ensure that frontline activities are executed consistently across a fleet of 50 or 100 vessels. Second, compliance readiness, maintaining a flawless, instantly accessible audit trail for SOLAS and MARPOL inspections.
And third is management visibility, which is the ultimate cure for the operational visibility gap we discussed earlier.
Exactly right.
When workflows are redesigned and capture structured data, that operational reality becomes visible to management the moment the vessel sinks. The ship and the shore are finally looking at the exact same dashboard.
Yes.
It allows a technical superintendent to look at fleet-wide maintenance trends and make strategic decisions based on hard data, not delayed anecdotes.
It fundamentally strengthens the overall governance of the fleet. We're talking about shifting from a reactive posture, where shore management is constantly putting out fires and chasing down lost paperwork, to a highly proactive posture where operational risks are identified and mitigated before they ever escalate into an incident.
It really is a complete operational transformation. We've journeyed from a reality where highly trained seafarers are bogged down by fragmented manual paper trails, taking blurry photos of coffee-stained clipboards and creating dangerous blind spots, all the way toward a future of structured operational control, a future where standardized workflows guarantee audit readiness and actually let the crew focus entirely on what they do best, safely navigating and operating the vessel.
This raises an important question for any QHSE leader or fleet director listening today. As the maritime industry faces increasingly complex environmental regulations and tighter margins, maintaining strict control over safety and compliance is no longer a differentiator. It is a fundamental requirement for survival. Relying on legacy manual reporting is an existential risk. Transitioning to structured operational control is the only viable path forward for a modern fleet.
It really is the only way to ensure the global supply chain keeps moving safely and efficiently in this regulatory environment. And that leaves me with one final thought, something for you to mull over after we wrap up today.
Go for it.
We talked deeply about how crucial it is to capture near-miss data and how paper forms completely bottleneck that process, leaving vital safety insights rotting in physical filing cabinets. But imagine a fleet where structured, offline-first digital workflows have removed absolutely all the friction of reporting a hazard.
Wow.
Imagine the sheer, unprecedented volume of instant, structured safety data that fleets will suddenly possess. How will unlocking that hidden treasure trove of real-time, near-miss data fundamentally change the way the industry designs maritime vessels, updates risk matrices, and engineers safety protocols in the decades to come?
It's a great point.
If the industry suddenly knows exactly what almost goes wrong every single day across thousands of ships globally, how much safer could the fleets of tomorrow actually be? It's a fascinating strategic question to consider. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We always appreciate your time and expertise, and we will catch you on the next one.